At 3:14 in the morning, Margot woke up on a concrete floor. Her breath came out in white clouds. Her 8-month pregnant belly pressed against the cold. Her husband had locked her in their unheated garage, left her there to freeze, while he slept warm in their bed just 12 inches away. But Preston Blackwell made one fatal mistake. He forgot that his wife's father was a billionaire who had installed thermal cameras on every property he owned, including the house Preston thought belonged to his family. At 3:47 that same morning, Theodore Ashford watched his daughter nearly freeze to death on a security monitor, 1,400 miles away. Helpless, furious. What happened next would destroy a marriage, expose a monster, and reveal secrets that Preston Blackwell had buried for decades. This is a story about survival, about betrayal, about a father's love and a mother's strength. Stay with me until the end. You will not believe how this turns out. Her breath came out in white clouds. Margot pressed her palm against her belly and felt her daughter kick, a reminder that at least one of them was still warm. The concrete floor had stolen every degree of heat from her body hours ago. She could not feel her feet anymore. Her lower back had seized into a knot of pain that made her gasp with every movement. 3:14 in the morning. She knew the time because she had been counting minutes, counting breaths, counting the reasons she was still here. The list kept getting shorter. Through the door connecting the garage to the house, she heard the furnace humming. Warmth existed just 12 inches of drywall away. She could picture the thermostat glowing at steady 72 degrees while she shivered on a yoga mat with nothing but a thin fleece blanket. Margot tried the door again. Still locked. Of course it was locked. Her phone sat inside on the kitchen counter. Her car keys hung on the hook by the back door. The garage door opener had been disabled 3 months ago when Preston decided she was leaving the house too often. For her own good, he had explained. Pregnant women needed rest. The baby shifted inside her. 8 months along now, 32 weeks of growing this tiny person who deserves so much better than a mother who could not even keep herself safe. She pulled the blanket tighter and tried to make herself smaller. Body heat conservation. She remembered learning about it somewhere. Maybe a survival show she had watched years ago when survival was just entertainment and not her actual life. The garage windows had frosted over from the inside. She could see her reflection in the ice crystals. A ghost of herself, hollow eyes and chapped lips and hair matted against her forehead. This was not the first time he had locked her out. The thought arrived without emotion, just a fact, like knowing the sky was blue or water was wet. Preston Blackwell III had locked his pregnant wife in an unheated garage in the middle of January. And this was not even the worst thing he had done to her. That realization should have broken something inside her. Instead, it just confirmed what she had known for months, maybe years. She was trapped in a marriage to a monster wearing a handsome face. The baby kicked again. Harder this time. Almost angry. I know, Margot thought. I know, sweetheart. I am going to get us out of this. Somehow. She just did not know how yet. 1,400 miles away, Theodore Ashford sat in his home office staring at a bank of monitors. The Houston skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, but he was not looking at the view. He had not slept well since his wife passed 3 years ago. Most nights he wandered between rooms in a house too large for one person, checking security feeds, reviewing reports, looking for problems to solve because solving problems was the only thing that quieted his mind. His security consultant had upgraded the thermal imaging on all properties last month. Routine measure. Ted owned 47 buildings across 3 states, not counting the ones held through various LLCs and trusts that even his accountants had trouble tracking. He clicked through the feeds absently. The office tower in Dallas, the warehouse complex in Austin, the beach house in Galveston that Margaret had loved so much. Then the Connecticut property appeared on his screen, the Blackwell estate, not technically his on paper. He had purchased it through a shell company 4 years ago and allowed his son-in-law to believe it belonged to the family trust, a small insurance policy, a way to keep his daughter close even when she insisted on pushing him away. The main house glowed warm orange on the thermal scan, 72 degrees throughout. The pool house sat dark and cold. The garage showed ambient temperature of 34 degrees. Ted frowned. The garage should be connected to the main heating system. Some kind of malfunction, perhaps. Then he saw it. A single heat signature. Small, curled in the corner, unmistakably human, and unmistakably pregnant. The coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered against the hardwood floor. He was already reaching for his phone. His daughter had not asked him for help else in 4 years. She had made it abundantly clear that she wanted nothing to do with his money or his influence or his overprotective nature. She would not need to ask now. Ted dialed his pilot, then his attorney, then a number he kept for emergencies, real emergencies, the kind that required men who did not ask questions. His private jet could reach Connecticut in 3 hours. He would have answers before sunrise. And God help Preston Blackwell when those answers came. Back in the garage, Margot had stopped shivering. She knew that was a bad sign. Hypothermia worked that way. First you shook uncontrollably, then the shaking stopped. Then you got sleepy. She could not afford to sleep. The baby moved again, slower this time, sluggish. That fear cut through the fog in her brain sharper than any cold. Her daughter was in danger. Her daughter who had done nothing wrong. Her daughter who deserved a mother strong enough to break down this door and walk out of this marriage and never look back. Margot forced herself to stand. Her legs buckled twice before they held her weight. She stumbled to the far corner of the garage where Preston kept his golf clubs. The 9-iron felt impossibly heavy in her frozen hands, but she lifted it anyway. She would break the window, crawl through, cut herself on the glass probably. But she would survive. Her daughter would survive. She raised the club over her shoulder. The door to the house clicked open. Preston stood in the doorway wearing silk pajamas and a concerned expression. Light spilled around him like a halo. Behind him, the warmth of the house called to her like salvation. Margot. His voice dripped with manufactured worry. What are you doing out here? You must have been sleepwalking again. She lowered the golf club slowly. He crossed to her and took it from her hands. Gentle, so gentle, like she was made of glass. You are freezing. He pulled her into his arms. His body heat felt like fire against her skin. Come inside. I will make you some tea. She should have said something, should have screamed or cried or beaten her fists against his chest, should have demanded to know why he had locked her out, why he had left her to freeze, why he seemed utterly unsurprised to find her in the garage with a golf club in her hands. Instead, we saw in another. She let him lead her inside, because that was what she always did. The kitchen gleamed under recessed lighting, marble counters, Viking appliances, a refrigerator that probably cost more than most people's cars. Everything perfect, everything pristine, everything a lie. Preston guided her to a stool and wrapped a cashmere throw around her shoulders. He moved to the stove and filled the kettle, each motion precise, practiced, a performance of husbandly concern. You scared me, he said without turning around. I woke up and you were gone. I searched the whole house before I thought to check the garage. Margot watched him measure loose-leaf chamomile into a ceramic pot. Her voice came out as a whisper. The door was locked. Was it? Preston's shoulders did not tense. His hands did not pause. That is strange. I will have someone look at the mechanism tomorrow. Old houses have quirks. The door had been locked from the inside. Margot knew this because she had tried it 100 times. Because she had screamed and pounded until her hands were raw and her throat was shredded. He knew she knew. He did not care. You should get some rest. He turned and smiled at her, that perfect smile that had charmed her 4 years ago at a charity gala. That smile she had trusted. That smile she had loved. The baby needs you healthy. Margot wrapped her hands around the warm mug he offered. The heat stung her frozen fingers. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, she said. Do you? His eyebrows lifted in polite interest. I do not remember that being on the calendar. I scheduled it last week. Preston sipped his own tea. Calm, collected, in complete control. I'm sure it can be rescheduled. You look exhausted. You should stay home and rest. It was not a suggestion. Margot looked down at her tea, at her hands wrapped around the mug, at the thin gold band on her finger that had once meant everything and now felt like a shackle. She thought about the woman she had been before this marriage, the one who graduated top of her class at Wharton, the one who turned down her father's money to build her own life, The one who believed she could see through anyone's facade because she had grown up surrounded by people wearing masks. That woman would have thrown the tea in his face, would have walked out the door and never looked back, would have burned this beautiful prison to the ground. But that woman had been slowly murdered over 4 years. Death by 1,000 cuts, 1,000 criticisms disguised as concern, 1,000 locked doors explained away as accidents. Margot drank her tea and said nothing. In her belly, her daughter kicked once more, weak but persistent, a reminder that she was not alone in this fight. And somewhere over Pennsylvania, a private jet cut through the darkness, carrying a father who had waited 4 years for his daughter to come home. He refused to wait for her body to come home in a box. Morning light filtered through plantation shutters as Margot woke in the master bedroom. Egyptian cotton sheets, goose-down pillows, a mattress that cost more than some cars. She ached in places she did not know could ache. Preston had already left for work. She found his note on the pillow beside her. Elegant handwriting on cream cardstock. Canceled your appointment. You need rest. See you for dinner. Love, P. Margot crumpled the note in her fist. Her hands trembled. From cold that still lived in her bones, from rage she could not afford to express. She forced herself out of bed. Every muscle screamed in protest. Her back had seized into a solid wall of pain from 8 hours on concrete. The mirror in the bathroom showed her the damage. Bruises bloomed across her lower back in shades of purple and green. Her lips were chapped and cracked. Dark circles ringed her eyes like she had been punched. She looked like a victim of violence. Because she was. The realization landed with surprising calm. Margot stared at her reflection and acknowledged what she had been denying for longer than she could admit. Her husband was abusing her. Not with fists. Nothing so obvious. Nothing that would leave marks anyone could question. But abuse came in many forms, and she had married a master of the subtle kind. She showered for 45 minutes. Let the hot water pound her aching muscles until her skin turned pink and raw. Stood under the spray long after the warmth penetrated because getting out meant facing reality. Eventually the water turned cold. Eventually she had to step back into her life. Margot dressed in cashmere and silk, applied makeup to hide the evidence of her sleepless night, styled her hair in the elegant waves Preston preferred, the performance of a happy wife. She had gotten very good at it. Elena appeared in the bedroom doorway as Margot finished her mascara. The household manager had worked for the Blackwell family for 11 years. She kept her eyes carefully blank as she announced that Mrs. Blackwell Sr. had arrived for an unscheduled visit. Cordelia. Of course, because this day was not already terrible enough. Margot descended the curved staircase to find her mother-in-law installed in the formal living room like she owned the place, which technically she did. The Blackwell family trust held the deed, or so Preston claimed. Margot. Cordelia did not rise from the settee, did not offer a hug or a cheek to kiss, just that sharp assessment that always made Margot feel like she was being measured and found wanting. You look tired. Good morning, Cordelia. Pregnancy does not suit some women. Cordelia sipped her tea. Bone china. The pattern had been in the Blackwell family for 4 generations. My sister was the same way, positively haggard by the 3rd trimester. Of course, she was older than you when she finally conceived. Margot lowered herself carefully into the chair across from her mother-in-law. Her back screamed in protest. Preston mentioned you had an episode last night. The word hung in the air between them. Episode, as if Margot had done something, as if being locked in a freezing garage was her fault. I must have been sleepwalking, Margot said. The lie tasted like ash. Cordelia set down her teacup with a precise click. Preston's father's first wife had similar problems. Very sad. She had to be managed eventually. Managed. Margot felt ice form in her veins despite the fire crackling in the hearth. What do you mean managed? These things run in families, you know, instability. Preston is understandably concerned about the baby, about what kind of mother you might be. The words landed like blows, precise, calculated, designed to wound, and suddenly Margot understood. They were not just controlling her. They were building a case. Crazy pregnant wife. Unstable. A danger to herself and the baby. Needs to be managed, committed. The walls of this beautiful house pressed closer. The air grew thin. Margot forced herself to breathe, to keep her face neutral, to not give them ammunition. "I appreciate your concern," she said. Each word cost her something. "But I am fine, just tired." "Of course you are." Cordelia smiled. It did not reach her eyes. These things often start small, a little forgetfulness, wandering at night. Before you know it, she waved a manicured hand. "Well, Preston knows the best people, the most discreet facilities. You would be well cared for." Margot thought about her daughter, about the nursery upstairs painted in soft yellows and greens, about the crib she had assembled herself because Preston said hiring someone was a waste of money. She thought about spending her daughter's birth in some facility while the Blackwells raised her child. Over my dead body, the thought arrived with surprising force, the first real fire she had felt in months. "I should rest," Margot said. Doctor's orders." "Oh yes, Preston mentioned he canceled your appointment. So thoughtful of him. He really does know what is best for you." Margot stood. Her back screamed. She did not let it show on her face. "Thank you for visiting, Cordelia." "Any time, dear. Family supports family." Margot climbed the stairs with as much dignity as she could manage, closed the bedroom door behind her, locked it for whatever good that would do. Then she sank to the floor and pressed her hands against her belly. I was so stupid, she thought. The signs were all there. The isolation from friends and family, the subtle criticisms that eroded her confidence, the financial control that left her dependent, the gaslighting that made her question her own reality, textbook abuse. She had studied it in college, recognized it in other women, promised herself she would never fall victim. And yet here she was. 4 years ago, she had been so certain she was different. She had fled her father's world deliberately, taken a job at a nonprofit making $42,000 a year, told no one about the Ashford billions. She wanted to be loved for herself, not for her last name, not for her trust fund, just for Margot. Preston had seemed perfect, charming but humble, wealthy but grounded. He pursued her with flowers and handwritten notes and elaborate dates that showed he was paying attention to who she actually was. "I love that you are not impressed by money," he had said on their third date. "Most women I meet only see dollar signs." She did not tell him she was not impressed because she had grown up with 100 times more than he would ever have. Looking back, she could see the cracks. The way his charm had an edge when he did not get his way. The way his humility curdled into resentment when she succeeded at something. The way his attention felt less like love and more like surveillance. But she had been so desperate to prove she could build a life without her father's shadow. So determined to show she did not need the Ashford name or the Ashford money. She had chosen the one man insecure enough to need to control a woman he thought was beneath him. And now she was paying for that choice with everything she had. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown Houston number. Margot reached for it automatically, then froze. Houston. Her father lived in Houston. She had blocked his number 4 years ago when she decided to build a life he could not control. He had called for months afterward, sent letters, had his assistant reach out through every possible channel. Eventually he stopped trying, or so she had thought. The phone stopped buzzing. A moment later, it started again. Same number. Margot stared at the screen. Her finger hovered over the answer button. Then she heard Preston's car in the driveway. Home early, checking on her, no doubt. She silenced the phone and shoved it under her pillow. Whatever her father wanted, it would have to wait. She had a husband to face first. Theodore Ashford's Gulfstream touched down at the private airstrip in Greenwich at 9:43 in the morning. Gray skies hung low over the Connecticut landscape, the kind of cold that seeped into bones and stayed there. Ted had not slept on the flight, had not eaten the breakfast his flight attendant offered, had not done anything except stare at the thermal imaging footage on his laptop and fight the urge to destroy something. His daughter, his baby girl, curled on a concrete floor in the freezing dark while her husband slept warm in the house they shared. He had failed her. The thought burned hotter than any rage. He had spent 40 years building an empire, accumulated more money than most countries, could buy or destroy almost anyone or anything he wanted, and none of it had protected his daughter. Walter Pennington met him on the tarmac. The attorney looked like a kindly grandfather with his silver hair and reading glasses. That appearance had fooled many opponents over the years. Walter was a shark in a cardigan, the best in the business. Security firm confirmed the footage, Walter said as they walked to the waiting car. Time-stamped and verified. Shows her entering the garage at 9:27 p.m. and remaining there until approximately 6:15 a.m. Ambient temperature dropped to 34 degrees by 3 a.m. She could have died. Yes, Walter did not sugarcoat it. She very well could have, along with the baby. Ted climbed into the black SUV. Two men sat in the front seat. They did not introduce themselves. They did not need to. Not the house, Ted said. Not yet. Take me to the security firm first. Sir, if I may suggest contacting your daughter directly. She blocked my number 4 years ago, Walter. She made it abundantly clear she wanted nothing to do with me. The words hurt more than Ted wanted to admit. If I show up at her door, she will slam it in my face. I need leverage first. I need to know everything. The security firm occupied a nondescript building in Stamford. High-tech, hidden behind boring architecture. The kind of place that handled problems for people who could afford solutions. The director met them personally, led them to a conference room with screens covering every wall. We pulled everything from the Connecticut property, he said. Thermal imaging, going back 6 months, motion sensors, audio when available. Show me. The screens came alive with data. Heat signatures moving through the house, patterns of behavior, evidence of a life being controlled. Margot rarely left the property. When she did, a second car followed at a distance. The same black Mercedes every time. Her phone calls lasted exactly as long as they were monitored. Texts appeared and disappeared in real-time editing. And last night in horrifying detail, Ted watched his daughter enter the garage at 9:27 p.m., watched the garage temperature drop from 62 degrees to 34 over 8 hours, watched her heat signature contract and curl as she tried to conserve warmth, watched no one check on her. Not once. In 8 hours. He was tracking her before this, the director said. 6 weeks minimum. Professional surveillance. We identified the vehicle and traced it to a security contractor with ties to the Blackwell family. Preston hired someone to follow his own wife. It appears so. We have documentation if you need it. Ted stood. The chair scraped against the floor. His hands shook with the effort of not putting them through the wall. What else? Financial records show significant transfers to an account held by a B. Crane. $30,000 over 6 months. B. Crane is Bethany Crane, Preston Blackwell's executive assistant. He is having an affair. That would be a reasonable conclusion. Ted looked at the screens, at the data that painted a picture of his daughter's marriage in damning detail, at the evidence of systematic control and abuse that had been happening while he sat in Houston telling himself she needed space. She had needed protection, and he had given her distance instead. I want everything, he said. Every piece of evidence, every financial record, every photograph and timestamp and documented lie. He turned to Walter. And I want you to find out what else he is hiding. Men like this always have more secrets. Already in progress, Walter said. I have forensic accountants looking at the Blackwell family finances. Initial findings suggest some irregularities in the shipping company records. Embezzlement? Possibly. We will know more within 48 hours. Ted nodded. The rage was crystallizing into something colder. More useful. Strategy rather than emotion. Do not approach Margot yet, he said. Not directly, but I want eyes on her. Make sure she is safe. And the husband? Ted looked at the thermal image frozen on the screen. His daughter reduced to a blob of fading warmth on a garage floor. Preston Blackwell is about to learn what it means to cross the wrong family. 3 miles away, Margot sat in the parking lot of Dr. Holloway's office. Preston had canceled her appointment. He had not canceled her determination. She had waited until his car disappeared down the driveway, had borrowed Elena's phone to call and reschedule, had driven herself to the medical complex in her own car because she was still capable of that much at least. The waiting room was warm and bright. Soft music played. Other pregnant women flipped through magazines or scrolled on phones. Normal women with normal pregnancies and normal marriages. Margot felt like an alien among them. Mrs. Blackwell? The nurse led her back to an exam room. Paper crinkled under her as she climbed onto the table. The baby kicked against her ribs. Dr. Holloway entered a few minutes later. 50-ish with kind eyes and capable hands. She had delivered hundreds of babies over her career. Had probably seen everything. She had not seen this. "Let us check on this little one," the doctor said. The ultrasound wand pressed against Margot's belly. Her daughter appeared on the screen. Strong heartbeat, good movement. Perfectly healthy despite everything. "She looks great," Dr. Holloway said. Then she paused, looked more closely at Margot's face, at the dark circles and the tension around her eyes. "How are you feeling? Tired? Sleeping well?" "Not really." The doctor set down the ultrasound wand, pulled up a chair, sat at eye level with Margot. "I noticed some bruising when you changed into the gown, on your lower back." Margot's throat closed. "I fell." "Where?" "At home." "Were you pushed?" The silence stretched. The clock on the wall ticked. 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 "No." Dr. Holloway did not push, did not argue, just reached into her pocket and pulled out a card. "This is a hotline," she said, "for women who need support. No judgment. Just help if you ever want it." Margot took the card, slipped it into her purse. She would not call. She knew she should. She knew she would not. Not yet. Not until she had a plan. "Thank you," she said. Dr. Holloway squeezed her hand. "You are not alone, Margot. Whatever is happening, you do not have to face it alone." Margot drove home in silence. The card sat in her purse like a grenade, an option she was not ready to pull the pin on. Her phone buzzed. That Houston number again. This time she answered. "Margot." Her father's voice, older than she remembered, rougher, like he had been screaming or crying or both. "How did you get this number?" "I have always had this number." She should hang up, should tell him to leave her alone, should remind him that she had built a life without his help and she did not need his interference now. But something in his voice stopped her, something broken. "I know what he did to you last night." Her blood turned to ice. "I do not know what you—" "I have thermal imaging on all my properties, including the house I bought through an LLC 4 years ago, the one your husband thinks belongs to his family trust." The world tilted. Margot pulled the car to the side of the road before she crashed. "You own our house?" "I own a lot of things, sweetheart. I own the bank that holds your husband's business loans. I own the shipping company that his family's fortune depends on." A pause, heavy with 4 years of silence. "I have owned them since a month before your wedding." The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Her father had not stepped back, had not respected her wishes for independence, had been controlling, manipulating, pulling strings from the shadows like he always did. "You had no right." "I had every right." His voice cracked. "You are my daughter, and that man locked you in a garage like an animal while you carried my grandchild. You were spying on me. I was protecting you, the only way you would let me." Another pause. "Margot, I watched the footage. I watched you nearly freeze to death, and I could not do anything. Do you understand what that felt like?" She thought about her mother, about how Margaret Ashford had always been the translator between father and daughter, the one who made Ted's overbearing love feel like actual love instead of control. Without her mother, Margot had run. Running had not saved her. It had just changed the cage. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I can destroy him today, this afternoon, his business, his reputation, his family name. I can leave him with nothing but the clothes on his back. And if I do not want that, then I wait, I watch, I protect you from the shadows like I have been doing for 4 years." His breath shuddered through the phone. "But Margot, I am asking you to let me help. Not because I want to control you, because I am scared, because I love you, because your mother would never forgive me if I let anything happen to you." Margot sat in her car on the side of the road, hand pressed against her belly where her daughter grew, tears streaming down her face for the first time in months. She thought about the man she had married, the man she had trusted, the man who locked her in a freezing garage and then pretended it never happened. She thought about her father. Controlling, yes. Overbearing, yes. But also the man who had stayed up all night when she was 6 because she was scared of the dark. The man who had cried at her graduation. The man who had given her space even when it killed him because she asked him to. Maybe the only way out was through his world, through her father's world, through the ugly truth she had been avoiding since the day she said I do. I am not coming home, she said. Margot, not yet, but I'm not staying either. She looked at the house in the distance, at the nursery window where she had spent months of preparing for a daughter who deserved better. I need to do this my way, but I need your help. For the first time in 4 years, Theodore Ashford let someone else lead. What do you need? Everything. I need to know everything. The country club dining room smelled like old money, polished silver, fresh flowers, barely concealed contempt dressed in designer labels. Margot arrived for lunch with Cordelia wearing her best armor, a cream cashmere sweater, pearl earrings that had been her mother's, the kind of quiet elegance that spoke of breeding without shouting about wealth. She had learned to play these games in her father's world. Time to use those skills again. Cordelia was already seated when Margot arrived, holding the menu like a weapon, flanked by 2 women from her charity board who looked at Margot like she was something stuck to their shoes. You are late, Cordelia said by way of greeting. Traffic. Margot smiled. It did not reach her eyes. How lovely that you brought friends. The lunch dragged through 3 courses of barely edible food and relentless social warfare. Cordelia made pointed comments about Margot's appearance, her weight gain, her lack of involvement in club activities. Of course, pregnancy is so demanding, one of the charity board women said. My daughter-in-law barely left the house during her 3rd trimester, though she did manage to attend the spring gala. Perhaps next year, Margot said, assuming I receive an invitation. The barb landed. Cordelia's smile went rigid. After the other women departed, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law faced each other across a table littered with the remains of overpriced salads. Preston is concerned about you, Cordelia said. Tai. These episodes, the sleepwalking, the mood swings. Cordelia stirred her tea with precise movements. His father's first wife had similar problems. Very sad. She had to be managed. There was that word again, managed. Margot felt the threat coiling beneath it. What happened to her? She asked. Preston's father's first wife? Something flickered in Cordelia's eyes, gone too quickly to identify. She received the help she needed in a very discreet facility. The Blackwell name was protected. And the woman? She recovered eventually. Lives somewhere quiet now. We do not speak of her. Margot thought about her daughter, about being locked away somewhere quiet while the Blackwells raised her child, about becoming a woman no one spoke of. I should go, she said. Rest, as you suggested. Of course, dear. Take care of yourself. The drive home took 20 minutes. Margot used every one of them to plan. Preston would not be home until 6. Elena had Thursdays off. The house would be empty for 3 hours. Enough time to find what she needed. Preston's study occupied the corner of the 2nd floor. Dark wood, leather chairs, a desk that had allegedly belonged to some Blackwell ancestor. The door was always locked. Margot had never questioned it, never pushed, never done anything except accept that some spaces in her own home were not hers to enter. That ended today. The lock was simple, a basic tumbler that yielded to a bobby pin and 10 minutes of patient work. Another skill from another life. Her college roommate had taught her during a weekend of questionable decisions. The study smelled like Preston, expensive cologne and paper, and something sour beneath it. The smell of secrets rotting behind a polished facade. The desk held the usual things: business correspondence, a Mont Blanc pen, a crystal paperweight shaped like a ship in honor of the family's shipping fortune. The drawer was locked. Of course it was. Margot found the key in a sock drawer. Men were predictable that way. Inside the drawer, her world fell apart. Bank statements, a separate account she had never seen, transfers to B. Crane, $30,000 over 6 months. Bethany Crane, Preston's executive assistant, the one who always smiled too wide when Margot visited the office, the one who touched Preston's arm just a beat too long. She read the messages that were not for her eyes. She is so naive. It almost makes me feel bad. Once the baby comes, we will have everything. Your mother's plan is genius. She will never see it coming. Margot photographed every page. Not because she had a plan, because some instinct from her father's world told her that evidence was survival. Beneath the bank statements, she found something worse. Legal documents, preliminary but detailed. A petition for sole custody, grounds stated as maternal mental instability, supporting documentation from a psychiatrist she had never met, and there, at the bottom, a prenuptial agreement amendment, voiding her claim to marital assets in cases of psychological unfitness as determined by medical evaluation. He was not just having an affair, he was building a prison. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity, the isolation, the gaslighting, the witnesses to her so-called episodes, Cordelia's comments about facilities and management. They were going to have her committed, take her baby, erase her from their perfect Blackwell family narrative, all while she smiled and played the grateful wife and never saw the trap closing around her. I was not crazy, Margot thought. I knew something the hang was wrong. I had known for months. I just had not been ready to see it. Her phone buzzed. That Houston number. This time she answered without hesitation. I found something, she said. Tell me, her father replied. She told him everything. The coffee shop sat on a side street in New Haven. Neutral territory, away from the cameras that Preston probably had monitoring their property. Away from the listening ears of household staff whose loyalty Margot could no longer trust. Savannah arrived first. Margot's older sister had driven down from Boston the moment she got the call, had not asked questions, had not needed to. Sisters knew when sisters were in trouble. You look like hell, Savannah said. Thank you. I mean it. When did you last sleep? Eat? Do anything except run yourself into the ground for that waste of carbon you married? Margot sat down across from her sister, wrapped her hands around a cup of tea she had no intention of drinking. I found some things, she said, in Preston's study. Good. Savannah pulled a folder from her bag, slid it across the table. Because I found some things, too. What is this? I hired a private investigator 8 months ago when you stopped returning my calls. Margot opened the folder. Photographs. Hotels. His car in parking lots. A woman's silhouette in windows. Text messages printed on glossy paper. Conversations that laid bare exactly who her husband was. She barely reacts. It is like she is already broken. Once the baby comes, I will have legal standing to take everything. My mother says the psychiatrist is ready whenever we need him. Bethany Crane, Savannah said. They have been sleeping together since before you were engaged. She was his girlfriend first. They never actually broke up. Margot read the messages twice. 3 times. The words did not change. The man she had married had never existed. She had fallen in love with a performance. There is more, Savannah said. His finances are a disaster. The shipping company is hemorrhaging money. He has been embezzling from his own family for years to cover the losses. That $8 million he claimed to have? Gone. He needed your money, Margot. That is why he married you. I did not have money. I walked away from Dad's. He knew. Savannah's voice was gentle. He knew who you were from the beginning. Did his research, found out about the Ashford billions, targeted you deliberately. The coffee shop seemed to spin around Margot. 4 years of her life, built on lies from the very first moment. Why did you not tell me? I tried. You blocked me. You blocked everyone who tried to warn you. Savannah reached across the table, took her sister's hand. You were so determined to prove you did not need us, that you could make it on your own. And he isolated you from everyone who loved you before we could break through. Margot thought about the friends she had lost touch with, the family gatherings she had missed, the slow, systematic dismantling of every support system she had ever had. Classic abuse. She had studied it, and still she had not seen it happening to her. What do I do? She asked. You let us help. Savannah squeezed her hand. Dad has lawyers, the best in the country. We have evidence of the affair, the embezzlement, the plan to have you committed. Preston Blackwell is about to discover what happens when you mess with the wrong family. I do not want Dad to fix this for me. Then do not let him. Fix it yourself, but use his resources to do it. Savannah smiled. There is no shame in using every weapon available, Margot. Not when you are fighting for your life, not when you are fighting for your daughter. Her daughter, the one constant, the one pure thing in this entire nightmare. Margot looked at the folder full of evidence, at her sister's fierce love, at the phone number from Houston that kept calling because her father refused to give up on her. Maybe the only way out was through. "Call Dad," she said. "Tell him I want to meet." The Houston number picked up on the first ring. "Margot," her father's voice cracked with hope. "I am in New Haven. Can you come?" "I never left Connecticut, sweetheart. I have been waiting." They met at a rental house Ted had secured. Anonymous, secure, the kind of place where difficult conversations could happen without witnesses. He looked older than she remembered. Grayer, lines carved deeper around his eyes. The weight of 3 years without his wife and 4 years without his daughter had taken its toll. "Daddy," the word slipped out before she could stop it. A child's name for a parent she had tried so hard to grow past. He did not speak, just opened his arms, and Margot fell into them. She cried for the first time since the garage, not for her marriage, for her mother who had seen this coming, for her father who had watched from the shadows, for the woman she used to be, and the woman she had become, and the woman she might still have the chance to be. "I am sorry," she said into his shoulder. "I am so sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. I shut you out for 4 years. You were building your own life. That is what children do." He held her tighter. "I should have fought harder, should have pushed through your walls. I would have hated you. Maybe." He pulled back, looked at her with eyes that held the same stubborn determination she saw in the mirror. "But you would have been safe." They sat in a room full of evidence, documents and photographs and financial records spread across tables. The anatomy of a betrayal laid bare in paper and pixels. Walter Pennington walked them through the options. "We can file for divorce immediately. Grounds of abuse, adultery, and financial fraud. We have enough evidence to ensure full custody and a significant settlement." "What about the custody petition he was preparing?" Margot asked. "Dead on arrival. No legitimate psychiatrist will support claims of mental instability when the only documentation comes from a doctor who has never examined you. Meanwhile, we have thermal imaging of your husband locking you in a freezing garage while 8 months pregnant." Walter smiled thinly. "Any judge will see through their scheme immediately." "What about criminal charges?" "More complicated. The garage incident could be charged as reckless endangerment, but prosecution depends on the local DA. The embezzlement from the shipping company is a separate matter. Federal authorities may be interested." Ted spoke for the first time since the meeting began. "What do you want, Margot?" She thought about Preston, about the man who had courted her with flowers and swept her off her feet and slowly, systematically destroyed everything she was. She thought about Bethany Crane and her smug text messages. She thought about Cordelia and her quiet threats. She thought about her daughter growing inside her, who deserved a mother strong enough to fight. "I want my daughter to be safe. I want to be free. And I want Preston Blackwell to understand exactly who he made an enemy of." Her father smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Then let us begin." Elena stood in the kitchen of the rental house with her hands clasped tight enough to leave marks. The household manager had worked for wealthy families for 30 years. She knew when the tide was turning, and she knew exactly whose side she wanted to be on when it did. "I want to help Mrs. Blackwell," she said. Walter Pennington sat across from her with a recorder running. His grandfatherly demeanor masked the shark beneath. "What have you seen, Elena?" "Everything." Her voice trembled but held. 4 years of everything. The locked doors, the canceled appointments, the way he speaks to her when no one else is listening, the marks she tries to hide. "Why are you coming forward now?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Last night, I heard her crying in the garage, heard her pounding on the door, begging to be let in." Her breath shuddered. "I wanted to help. I almost unlocked the door. But you did not. My daughter, she is undocumented, working toward her green card. Mr. Blackwell knows. He made sure I knew he knows." Elena wiped her eyes. "He said if I ever betrayed the family, one phone call would destroy everything my daughter has worked for." Ted leaned forward. "Elena, I give you my word. Your daughter will have her green card within 90 days. The best immigration lawyers in the country will handle her case. Whatever Preston threatened, I can undo. Why would you do that? Because you tried to help my daughter. Because you wanted to unlock that door. His voice was gentle but firm. Because courage deserves to be rewarded, even when it comes too late. Elena nodded slowly. Then she began to talk. 4 years of observations poured out. Preston's affairs, his financial schemes, his escalating cruelty toward a wife he had never loved. The conversations she had overheard between mother and son about managing Margot into a facility. Walter recorded every word. "There is one more thing," Elena said when she had finished. "Mr. Blackwell has been making calls, late at night, to a man he only calls by a first name, discussing how to make problems disappear." "What kind of problems?" "I do not know specifics, but after these calls, Mr. Blackwell seems calmer, like he has solved something." She paused. "Last night, after Mrs. Blackwell's father called, Mr. Blackwell made another call. He said something about his wife becoming a liability." The room went very still. "Thank you, Elena," Ted said. "You may have just saved my daughter's life." Across town, Margot checked into a Holiday Inn Express off the highway. Nothing fancy, paid in cash, used a fake name she invented on the spot. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. 8 months pregnant, alone, running from a husband who apparently considered her a liability to be dealt with. Her phone showed 47 missed calls from Preston, increasingly frantic texts. "Where are you? Margot, this is not funny. Your behavior is concerning everyone. If you have done something stupid, I swear to God." She did not respond. Her daughter kicked against her ribs, strong and insistent, reminding her that she was not actually alone. The hardest part was not learning he never loved me, she thought. The hardest part was admitting I had known all along. Every red flag, every warning sign, every moment her gut had screamed at her to run. She had ignored them all because admitting the truth meant admitting she had been a fool. Pride had nearly killed her. A knock at the door made her freeze. Not Preston. He could not have found her this quickly, unless he had people looking. Unless the surveillance she thought she had escaped was more comprehensive than she knew. "Margot?" A woman's voice. Familiar. "It is Dr. Holloway. Your sister called me. She thought you might need a friend tonight." Margot opened the door. The doctor stood in the fluorescent hallway with a medical bag in one hand and a concerned expression that held no judgment. "May I come in?" They talked for 2 hours about the pregnancy, about the marriage, about the choices Margot had made, and the choices she still needed to make. Dr. Holloway examined her right there in the hotel room, checked vitals and listened to the baby's heartbeat, and documented the bruises on Margot's back with clinical precision. "I need to ask you again," she said when the examination was complete. "Were you hurt by someone?" This time Margot told the truth. All of it. The locked doors, the gaslighting, the plan to have her committed. The husband who apparently wanted to make her disappear. Dr. Holloway's face went very still. "I am required to report this." "I know. Are you ready for what happens next?" "No," when Margot's hand pressed against her belly, "but I am doing it anyway." For the first time in years, she did not feel small. She felt something else entirely, something that might be power. The next morning, several things happened simultaneously. At 8 o'clock, Walter Pennington filed for divorce on Margot's behalf in Hartford Superior Court. Grounds stated as domestic abuse, adultery, and financial fraud. Attached as exhibits were the thermal imaging footage, medical records documenting her injuries, Elena's sworn statement, and the private investigator's photographs. At 8:15, Detective Marcus Webb arrived at Preston Blackwell's office with a warrant, not for arrest, not yet, but for financial records related to the shipping company embezzlement that Elena had mentioned. At 8:30, a story appeared in the Hartford Courant, anonymous source. Details about a prominent Connecticut businessman and his pregnant wife. No names yet, but enough specifics that everyone who mattered knew exactly who was being discussed. At 8:45, Cordelia Blackwell's phone began ringing. Her garden club, her charity board, her church. Everyone wanted to know if the rumors were true. Preston did not know about any of this until 9:15, when his attorney called with the divorce papers. By then it was already too late. Margot watched the unraveling from her father's plane, finally headed home to Houston. She had resisted for 4 years, pushed back against his help, insisted she could handle her own life. But some battles required reinforcements, and her father had been building an army for her since before her wedding day. The Hartford DA is interested in the embezzlement case, Walter reported over the secure line. Federal authorities are reviewing the financial records. Between the fraud and the documented abuse, Preston is facing serious legal exposure. What about the phone calls Elena mentioned? Margot asked. The ones about making problems disappear? We have people looking into it. If he hired someone to harm you, we will find out. Ted sat beside his daughter on the plane. He had not let her out of his sight since they reunited. Not hovering, just present, a steady rock in the chaos. How are you feeling? He asked. Tired. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Angry. Relieved. Terrified. A pause. Hungry, actually. I have not eaten properly in months. Ted smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had seen from him in years. The kitchen staff has been preparing your favorites. Your sister stocked the nursery. Your old room is exactly how you left it. You kept it? Your mother would not let me change anything. She always said you would come home eventually. Margot thought about her mother, about Margaret Ashford, who had died 3 years ago, still hoping her youngest daughter would find her way back. I wish she was here. She is. Ted took her hand. Every time you fight for yourself and your daughter, she is here. They landed in Houston as the sun was setting. The Ashford estate glowed golden in the fading light. 40 acres of Texas land that had been in the family for generations. Home. Margot had spent 4 years running from this place, from her father's money and influence and suffocating protection. Now she understood that protection was just another word for love. The nursery took her breath away. Soft yellow walls, white furniture, a mobile of silver stars hanging over a crib that must have cost more than some cars. Your mother picked everything out, Ted said from the doorway. Before she died, she wanted to be ready. Margot sank into the rocking chair by the window, pressed her hands against her belly where her daughter moved. She cried for her mother who had seen this coming. She cried for her father who had watched and waited and never stopped trying. She cried for herself in the years she had wasted on a man who never deserved her. And when the tears finally stopped, she felt lighter than she had in years. That night, Walter called with an update. Preston's attorneys have filed counter motions, mental instability, flight risk, parental alienation. They want emergency custody the moment the baby is born. Can they get it? Not a chance. They cannot prove instability because you are not unstable. Meanwhile, we have footage of him locking you in a freezing garage while 8 months pregnant. Walter's voice held grim satisfaction. Their case is dead before it starts. What about Bethany? Ah, she could hear his smile through the phone. Miss Crane has proven remarkably cooperative. Once she realized that Preston promised to leave his wife for her, but had made the same promise to 2 other women over the past decade. Margot should have felt vindicated. Instead, she just felt sad. She really thought he loved her. She really thought he would choose her. Walter paused. People believe what they want to believe, until they cannot anymore. I was not his first victim, Margot thought. I was just the one who got away. The call came at 2 in the morning. Margot fumbled for her phone in the darkness of her childhood bedroom. The number was blocked. Hello? Heavy breathing, then a voice she knew too well. Where are you? Preston, of course. How did you get this number? I have my ways. His voice was controlled, too controlled, the voice he used when he was about to do something terrible. Come home, Margot. This has gone far enough. I am not coming back. You are my wife. You are carrying my child. I belong to myself. The words came out stronger than she expected. I always have. You just made me forget for a while. Silence. She could hear him breathing, processing. Your father thinks he can protect you, Preston said finally. He is wrong. The Ashfords are not as untouchable as they believe. Is that a threat? It is a fact. His voice went cold. Come home willingly, or I will bring you home, one way or another. The line went dead. Margot sat in the darkness with her phone clutched in her hand. She should be afraid, should be panicking, should be calling her father and Walter and everyone else who had promised to protect her. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Clarity. Preston was not a monster from a fairy tale. He was a small man who had built an elaborate performance of power. And like all performances, it could be brought down. She just had to stop being afraid of the curtain call. The next morning, she walked into her father's study with a plan. Ted and Walter were already there, along with a woman Margot did not recognize, 50-ish with sharp eyes and a tablet full of documents. "This is Catherine Price," Walter said, "forensic accountant. She has been reviewing the Blackwell family finances." "What did you find?" Catherine pulled up a spreadsheet on the wall-mounted screen. "Preston Blackwell has been embezzling from the family shipping company for approximately 7 years. Total amount diverted exceeds $12 million. He used the funds to cover personal debts, including significant gambling losses and payments to various women." $12 million? Margot sat down hard. "The company is that big?" "The company was that big." Catherine scrolled to another document. "Current projections show they will be insolvent within 18 months. Preston has been hiding the losses through creative accounting, but the foundation is rotten." "Does his family know?" "Cordelia Blackwell appears to be aware. She has been quietly liquidating personal assets for the past 2 years, moving money into trusts that Preston cannot access. His own mother was preparing for his downfall, had probably known what he was for years." "There is more," Walter said. "We traced those phone calls Elena mentioned. The man Preston has been calling is a private security contractor with a questionable reputation, specializes in solving problems for wealthy clients." "What kind of problems?" "The kind that disappear." Margot's hand went to her belly. Her daughter kicked against her palm. "He was going to have me killed?" "We do not know for certain. But the timing of this calls, combined with Elena's testimony about you becoming a liability." Walter's face was grim. "We have shared everything with law enforcement. Detective Webb is investigating." Ted had been silent through all of this, watching his daughter, waiting. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Margot looked at the evidence spread across the screens, at the paper trail of her husband's crimes, at the proof that her marriage had been a con from the very beginning. "I wanted to take him on," she said, "but I want to do it right, not just revenge, justice. Those are not always the same thing." "I know." She met her father's eyes. "But I want to be able to look my daughter in the face someday. I want her to know her mother fought fair even when she did not have to." Ted nodded slowly. "Then we build the case properly, document everything, let the legal system work." He smiled. "And when the system is done with him, there will not be anything left to destroy." The doorbell rang. Elena appeared in the doorway a moment later, looking shaken. "Mrs. Blackwell Sr. is here," she said. "She says she needs to speak with you. She says it is about Preston." Margot exchanged glances with her father. "Send her in." Cordelia Blackwell looked smaller than Margot remembered. Older. The imperious society matron who had terrorized her for 4 years had been replaced by a frightened old woman clutching a folder to her chest. "I'm not here to apologize," Cordelia said. "Then why are you here?" "Because my son is a monster, and I made him that way, and if I do not do something, he is going to destroy himself along with everyone around him." She handed the folder to Walter. Inside were psychiatric records, dated from when Preston was 17. A hospitalization after a violent episode. A girlfriend he had nearly killed. "The Blackwell name paid for this to disappear," Cordelia said. "I have spent 30 years managing him, covering for him, enabling him." Her voice broke. "I told myself I was protecting my son. I was protecting a predator." "Why are you telling us this now?" "Because he called a man last night, a man who makes people disappear, and the person he wants to disappear is you." The room went very still. "You are sure?" Ted asked. "I heard the conversation myself. I have been monitoring his calls for months, ever since I realized how far gone he was." Cordelia looked at Margot. "I know you hate me. You have every right. But that baby you are carrying is my grandchild, and I will not let my son hurt either of you." Margot should feel vindicated, should feel triumphant. The woman who had tormented her was standing here offering to destroy her own child. Instead, she just felt tired. What do you want, Cordelia? I want to testify against my own son before he does something that cannot be undone. The morning of Preston's arrest dawned gray and cold over Connecticut. A fitting end, Margot thought, for a man who had tried to freeze her to death. She was not there to witness it. Dr. Holloway had placed her on strict bed rest after a minor scare with early contractions. Her body was telling her to slow down. For once, she listened. But Savannah was there, hidden in a rental car at the edge of the country club parking lot with a telephoto lens and a grim smile. Preston was on the 8th hole when the police cruisers appeared. 3 of them. No sirens, no drama, just quiet efficiency that somehow made it worse. Detective Marcus Webb led the way across the manicured green. His blue-collar roots showed in the way he walked. No deference to wealth, no hesitation in the face of old money. Preston saw them coming. Savannah captured the exact moment his face changed, the confusion giving way to understanding, giving way to something that might have been fear. He tried to run. That was the part that would play on the evening news. Preston Blackwell III, pillar of Connecticut society, sprinting across the 8th hole like a common criminal. His golf club flying from his hands, his polo shirt coming untucked, his carefully constructed image shattering with every desperate step. Detective Webb caught him at the edge of the sand trap. 2 uniformed officers helped wrestle him to the ground. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists with a sound that Savannah said she would remember for the rest of her life. Preston Blackwell, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, reckless endangerment, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Preston's golf partners stood frozen on the green, men who had known him for decades, men who had done business with him, played cards with him, attended his wedding. They watched in silence as one of their own was dragged away. No one moved to help him. No one said a word. That silence, Savannah reported later, was more damning than any accusation. Margot watched the footage on her phone from her childhood bedroom in Houston. Grace kicked inside her belly as Preston's face filled the screen, as if her daughter already knew this man was someone to fight against. How do you feel? Ted asked from the doorway. Margot considered the question. How did she feel watching her husband arrested on national television? How did she feel seeing the man who had locked her in a freezing garage finally face consequences? Empty, she said finally. I thought I would feel triumphant, vindicated, something big. She touched her belly. Instead, I just feel tired and relieved and ready for this to be over. Ted crossed the room and sat beside her on the bed. He had aged in the past month. Gray had crept further into his hair. Lines had deepened around his eyes. The stress of almost losing his daughter had taken its toll. Your mother felt the same way, he said quietly. About what? When she finally left her first marriage, before she met me. Ted smiled at Margot's surprised expression. She never told you about that, did she? Mom was married before? For 2 years, to a man who made her feel small, who controlled her money and her friendships in every aspect of her life. Ted's voice was gentle. She escaped with nothing but the clothes on her back and a determination to never let anyone diminish her again. Margot thought about her mother, about Margaret Ashford, who had always seemed so strong, so certain, so completely in control of her own destiny. How did she get through it? One day at a time, one decision at a time, she rebuilt herself piece by piece until the woman she had been before seemed like a stranger. Ted took his daughter's hand, and then she met me, and she taught me that real strength is not about controlling others. It is about lifting them up. Is that why you backed off when I married Preston? I wanted to swoop in and save you. Every instinct I had screamed at me to interfere. Ted's grip tightened. But your mother made me promise. Before she died. She said you needed to find your own strength. That if I rescued you, you would never learn to rescue yourself. Tears spilled down Margot's cheeks. Her mother, even in death, had been protecting her, preparing her, trusting her to survive. I miss her so much. I know, sweetheart. I do too. They sat together in the fading afternoon light, father and daughter, survivors of different wars, united by love and loss and the hard-won wisdom that came from both. Grace kicked again, harder this time, insistent. "I think she wants attention," Margot said. "She comes by that honestly." Ted smiled. "Your mother was the same way. Never let anyone ignore her." The news coverage dominated the next several weeks. Preston Blackwell's fall from grace became a national story. The handsome businessman, the society wife, the thermal camera footage that showed exactly what kind of monster hid behind the perfect facade. Reporters camped outside the Ashford estate. Margot refused all interviews. Let them speculate. Let them theorize. She owed them nothing. What mattered was the legal process grinding forward with relentless efficiency. Preston's bail hearing became a spectacle. His attorneys argued that he was a pillar of the community, a respected businessman, a man with deep roots who posed no flight risk. The prosecution played the recording of his phone call discussing how to make his wife disappear. Bail was set at $2 million. The Blackwell family accounts were frozen pending the federal fraud investigation. Cordelia had already moved her personal assets beyond Preston's reach. His business partners had distanced themselves. His golf buddies had stopped returning calls. For the first time in his privileged life, Preston Blackwell had no one willing to bail him out. He spent the night before his arraignment in a county jail cell. Margot heard later that he cried, that he begged the guards to let him make one more phone call, that he offered them money he no longer had access to. The guards ignored him. Money only mattered when you actually had it. The federal charges came next. 12 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of money laundering, evidence of embezzlement stretching back 7 years and totaling more than $12 million. The shipping company filed for bankruptcy protection. Hundreds of employees lost their jobs. A legacy that stretched back 4 generations crumbled because one man could not control his greed. Preston's face was everywhere. Magazine covers, news programs, true crime podcasts that dissected every aspect of his life. The charming smile that had once won Margot's heart now looked sinister in retrospect. Every photograph was re-examined. Every public appearance was analyzed. The internet became judge and jury, and they found him guilty long before any trial began. Margot tried to stay away from it, tried to focus on her pregnancy and her health and the future she was building. But sometimes, late at night when sleep would not come, she scrolled through the coverage. Read the comments from strangers who had never met her, but who understood exactly what she had survived. She was not alone. That was the realization that hit her hardest. She was not alone in this experience. Thousands of women had lived through something similar, had married monsters wearing handsome faces, had been gaslit and controlled and diminished until they forgot who they were, and some of them had not survived. The thought kept her awake more than once, the knowledge that she had come so close to becoming a statistic. A cautionary tale. A name mentioned briefly in news reports before the world moved on to the next tragedy. She had survived because her father was watching, because Elena found her courage, because Cordelia chose her granddaughter over her son. But what about the women who had no one watching? No one brave enough to speak? No one willing to choose them? The idea began forming in the darkest hours of the night, a purpose beyond just surviving, a way to transform her pain into something that could help others. She did not share it yet, not until the legal process was complete, not until Grace was safely in the world, not until she had the strength to build something that mattered. But the seed was planted, and it would grow. 3 weeks before her due date, Margot's water broke. She was in the nursery at the time, arranging stuffed animals on the shelf beside the crib, a gift from Elena, a teddy bear she had sewn herself with fabric from her grandmother's dress. The first contraction hit like a wave, sharp and sudden and undeniable. "Dad!" Margot called out. Her voice echoed through the empty hallway. "It is happening." Ted appeared in seconds. He had not strayed far from her side since she arrived in Houston. Some might have called it overprotective. Margot called it love. "How far apart?" he asked, already reaching for his phone. "I do not know. This is the first one." Okay. He took a breath, steadied himself. The man who had built an empire from nothing, who had negotiated deals worth billions, who had faced down competitors and regulators and every obstacle the business world could throw at him, was visibly rattled by the prospect of his grandchild's arrival. "Dad, breathe." "I am breathing." "You are hyperventilating." He laughed despite himself. The tension broke slightly. "Come on," he said. "The car is ready. Dr. Holloway is meeting us at the hospital." The drive took forever and no time at all. Margot focused on breathing through the contractions that came faster and faster. Ted focused on not running every red light between the estate and the medical center. Savannah was waiting when they arrived. She had driven through the night from Boston the moment she got the call. "How are you feeling?" she asked as nurses helped Margot into a wheelchair. "Like I am being torn apart from the inside." "So normal then?" "I hate you." "I know, let us go have a baby." The delivery room was bright and sterile and somehow comforting. Dr. Holloway appeared in scrubs with a calm competence that made Margot feel slightly less terrified. "Your little girl is eager to meet you," the doctor said after the initial examination. "She is already in position. This is going to move fast." Fast was an understatement. The next 6 hours blurred together, pain and pressure, and the overwhelming sensation of her body doing something completely beyond her control. Ted held her hand through the worst of it. Savannah wiped sweat from her forehead and whispered encouragement. And then everything went wrong. "Her heart rate is dropping," Dr. Holloway said. The calm in her voice had sharpened. "We need to move now." The room erupted into controlled chaos. Nurses rushing, machines beeping, someone placing an oxygen mask over Margot's face. "What is happening?" she gasped. "What is wrong with my baby?" "The cord is compressed. We need to do an emergency cesarean." Dr. Holloway squeezed her hand. "I need you to trust me, Margot. Can you do that?" Margot thought about all the people who had failed her, who had betrayed her trust, who had made her question whether she could rely on anyone. Then she thought about Dr. Holloway, who had noticed the bruises, who had offered help without judgment, who had come to a hotel room in the middle of the night just to be a friend. "I trust you," she said. They wheeled her to the operating room at a run. The anesthesiologist spoke quickly about what she would feel and not feel. Nurses prepped her abdomen with practiced efficiency. Somewhere beyond the sterile drapes, Dr. Holloway worked with steady hands to bring Grace into the world. Margot could not see what was happening, could only feel pressure and pulling and a strange sensation of emptiness as her daughter was lifted from her body. Silence. 1 second, 2, 3, then a cry, thin and wavering at first, then stronger. The most beautiful sound Margot had ever heard. "She is perfect," Dr. Holloway said. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers and 10 toes, absolutely perfect. A nurse appeared beside Margot with a bundle wrapped in hospital blankets. A tiny face with eyes squeezed shut, a rosebud mouth, wisps of dark hair plastered to a perfectly shaped head. "Hello, Grace Eleanor Ashford," Margot whispered. "I have been waiting so long to meet you." Grace opened her eyes, looked up at her mother with an intensity that seemed impossible for a newborn, as if she already knew exactly who Margot was and exactly what they had survived together. Then she yawned and went to sleep. Margot laughed, cried, held her daughter close and felt something shift inside her. Some final piece clicking into place. She was a mother now. Everything that came before, every terrible thing Preston had done, every moment of fear and doubt and pain, it all led to this, to Grace, to a second chance at life. Ted appeared in the recovery room an hour later. His eyes were red, his hands trembled as he reached for his granddaughter. "She has Margaret's chin," he said. His voice cracked, the same stubborn set. "She has your determination." Margot smiled through her exhaustion. "God help us all." Ted cradled Grace against his chest. The tiny girl looked even smaller in his arms, a billionaire brought to his knees by 7 pounds of pure possibility. "I'm going to spoil her rotten," he said. "I know. I'm going to teach her everything. Business, strategy, how to identify enemies and neutralize threats." "She is 12 hours old, Dad. It is never too early to start." Grace sneezed, a tiny, delicate sound that made both adults freeze. Then she settled back to sleep, completely unimpressed by the drama surrounding her existence. "She is going to be a force of nature," Ted said. "She already is," Margot agreed. "She survived everything. She is stronger than any of us." The news of Grace's birth spread quickly. Cards and flowers arrived from people Margot barely remembered, colleagues from her nonprofit days, friends she had lost touch with during her marriage. even a carefully worded note from Cordelia asking him for a photograph if Margot was willing to share. She was not ready for that yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. What mattered was the small universe of her hospital room, the daughter in her arms. The family gathered around her, the future stretching ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. Preston's trial was scheduled for 6 months out. The legal process would grind on with or without her attention. Walter had everything under control. For now, Margot's only job was to heal, to bond with her daughter, to learn how to be the mother Grace deserved. The rest could wait. On her 3rd day in the hospital, Margot received an unexpected visitor. Elena knocked softly on the door, holding a gift bag and wearing an expression caught between joy and nervousness. "I hope it is okay that I came," she said. "I wanted to see her, to see both of you." "Come in." Margot shifted Grace so Elena could see her face. "Meet Grace Eleanor." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "She is beautiful, so beautiful." She reached out, then hesitated. "May I?" "Of course." The handoff was awkward. Grace fussed for a moment, then settled into Elena's arms with a contented sigh. "She knows you," Margot said. "She heard your voice all those months. She knows you helped save her." "I did not do enough." Elena's voice was thick. "That night in the garage. I should have unlocked the door. I should have. You did what you could, what was safe for you and your daughter." Margot reached out to touch Elena's arm. "And when you could do more, you did. That is what matters." Elena sat in the chair beside the bed, still holding Grace. The afternoon light caught the gray in her hair, the lines around her eyes. "My daughter got her green card last week," she said. "Your father kept his promise, he always does. She wants to go to nursing school. She was too afraid to even dream of it before." Elena looked down at Grace. "You changed our lives, both of us, by fighting back, by surviving." "We changed our lives together," Margot corrected. "None of this would have happened without you." They sat in comfortable silence. Two women from different worlds who had been brought together by circumstance and forged into something like family by shared struggle. "I have been thinking," Elena said finally, "about what I want to do next, now that I am free of the Blackwell house. And I want to help other women, other families like mine, who are trapped by fear and circumstance." She looked up at Margot. "I know you have been thinking about something similar. I can see it in your eyes." Margot smiled. Nothing got past Elena. "I have ideas," she admitted, "but they are still forming. I need to get through the trial first, need to focus on Grace. When you are ready, I want to be part of it, whatever it is. You will be the first person I call." Grace chose that moment to wake up hungry. Elena handed her back with a reluctance that made Margot's heart ache. "I should go," Elena said. "Let you rest, but I will come back, if that is okay." "It is more than okay. It is expected." Elena left with promises to visit again soon. Margot settled back against her pillows with Grace at her breast, feeding with the single-minded determination that seemed to characterize everything about this tiny person. The future was uncertain. The trial loomed. Rebuilding her life would be hard and slow and full of setbacks. But for the first time in years, Margot felt ready for whatever came next. She had her daughter, her family, a purpose taking shape in the back of her mind, and she had survived the coldest night of her life. Everything else was just details. 6 months after Grace's birth, Margot stood in a Houston courtroom and watched her former husband receive his sentence. Preston had aged badly in custody. The tailored suits were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit that hung on a frame that had lost weight in all the wrong places. The charming smile had faded. The confident posture had crumbled. He looked like what he was. A broken man facing the consequences of a lifetime of cruelty. The courtroom was packed. Media in the back rows. Spectators who had followed the case. Cordelia in the front, looking smaller and older than Margot had ever seen her. Judge Catherine Morrison presided, 60-ish with steel gray hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. Grandmother to 4, known for fair but firm sentencing, perfect for this case. The prosecution presented their evidence one final time. The thermal camera footage played on screens around the courtroom. Margot watched herself on that garage floor, curled against the cold, fighting to protect her unborn daughter. She did not look away. Neither did the jury. The financial evidence came next. $12 million in embezzlement, hundreds of jobs lost, a legacy destroyed by greed. Then the phone recordings. Preston's voice discussing how to make his wife disappear. Clinical, cold. Discussing the murder of his child's mother like it was a business transaction. Several jurors visibly recoiled. When it was time for victim impact statements, Margot rose from her seat. She had written and rewritten her words a dozen times, had practiced them in front of mirrors and family members and alone in the middle of the night. But standing at the podium, looking at the man who had tried to destroy her, she set her notes aside. Preston Blackwell married me under false pretenses, she began. Her voice was steady, strong. He targeted me because of my family's wealth. He courted me with lies. He isolated me from everyone who loved me. And then, piece by piece, he tried to erase who I was. She paused, let the words settle. For 4 years, I lived in a prison of his making. I doubted my own perceptions. I apologized for things that were not my fault. I made myself smaller and smaller until I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Another pause. In the gallery, Savannah wiped tears from her eyes. On January 15th of this year, my husband locked me in an unheated garage while I was 8 months pregnant. He left me there for 8 hours in temperatures that dropped to 34 degrees. My daughter and I nearly died. Margot turned to look at Preston directly. He would not meet her eyes. I am not here for revenge, she said. Revenge would require me to still care about you. I do not. You are a stranger who wore the face of a man I thought I loved. That man never existed. Only the monster was real. She turned back to the judge. I am here because other women need to know that monsters can be stopped. That wealth and connections and a charming smile do not make anyone untouchable. That surviving is possible. That thriving after survival is possible. Her voice strengthened. My daughter is 6 months old today. She will never know her biological father, but she will know that her mother fought for her, protected her, built a life worth living from the ashes of one that nearly killed us both. Margot gathered her notes, prepared to step down, then stopped. One more thing, she said, to any woman listening who recognizes her own story and mine, who is trapped right now in a prison that looks like a marriage, who has been told she is crazy or ungrateful or imagining things. She let the silence stretch. You are not crazy. You are not imagining things. And there is help available. Please reach out. Please serve it by. Please give yourself the chance to stand where I am standing today. She returned to her seat. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison removed her reading glasses, wiped her eyes, put them back on. Thank you, Mrs. Ashford, she said. The court will take a brief recess before sentencing. The recess lasted 20 minutes. Margot spent it in a small room with her father and sister, holding Grace, who slept through the entire proceeding with the obliviousness of the very young. You were incredible, Savannah said. Mom would have been so proud. I almost lost my nerve, Margot admitted. When I saw him sitting there, part of me wanted to run. But you did not. Ted squeezed her shoulder. You faced him. That is what matters. When court resumed, Judge Morrison wasted no time. Preston Blackwell III, she said, please rise. Preston struggled to his feet. His attorney had to help him. You have been found guilty of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, reckless endangerment of a pregnant woman, and multiple counts of federal fraud. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Your actions were calculated, cruel, and could have resulted in the deaths of your wife and unborn child. The judge paused, shuffled papers. I have presided over many cases in my 30 years on the bench. I have seen terrible things done by terrible people. But rarely have I seen such a complete disregard for human life from someone who should have known better. She looked directly at Preston. You were born into privilege, given every advantage, and you used those advantages to prey on a woman who trusted you, to steal from your own family, to plot murder when your scheme began to unravel. Preston swayed slightly. His attorney steadied him. Preston Blackwell III, I sentence you to 8 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, an additional 5 years for reckless endangerment, and 3 years for fraud to run consecutively. Margot did the math, 16 years. You will be eligible for parole after serving 12 years. You are prohibited from any contact with your former wife or daughter during your incarceration and for 10 years following your release. Violation of this order will result in immediate reincarceration. The gavel fell. Preston collapsed into his chair. And Margot felt something she had not expected. Nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, no vindication. Just a quiet acknowledgement that a chapter had closed, that a threat had been neutralized, that she could finally, fully move forward. She gathered her things, kissed her daughter's forehead, walked out of the courtroom without looking back. The press wanted statements. She gave them 3 sentences. Justice was served today. My focus now is on my daughter and on helping other survivors rebuild their lives. Thank you. Then she got in the car with her family and drove away. The Ashford Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors launched 3 months after the trial. Margot had spent every spare moment during the legal proceedings planning, researching, consulting with experts, building something that would transform her pain into purpose. The foundation started small, a single safe house in Houston, a hotline that operated 12 hours a day, a legal aid clinic that helped women navigate the complex process of leaving abusive relationships. Elena was the first employee. Her experience on both sides of the power dynamic made her invaluable. She knew how domestic workers were vulnerable to exploitation. She knew how abusers used immigration status as a weapon. She knew the fear that kept people silent. Dr. Holloway joined the board of directors. Her medical expertise helped shape protocols for identifying abuse victims in clinical settings, training programs for healthcare workers, resources for doctors and nurses who wanted to help but did not know how. Detective Webb consulted on safety planning. His law enforcement background informed security measures for safe houses. His network connected the foundation to resources across the country. Even Cordelia contributed, a substantial donation that Margot accepted after much deliberation. The money could help people. That mattered more than old grudges. The foundation grew faster than anyone anticipated. Word spread through domestic violence networks. Survivors who had benefited from the services became advocates. Local businesses donated. National organizations partnered. Within a year, they had expanded to 5 states. Within 2 years, 12. Safe houses that could accommodate over 200 women and children at any given time. Legal aid that had helped secure over 1,000 protective orders. A hotline that rang around the clock because crisis never slept. Margot threw herself into the work with everything she had. Early mornings and late nights, board meetings and fundraising galas, hands-on time at the safe houses, listening to stories that broke her heart and strengthened her resolve. She was making a difference. She could see it in the faces of women who arrived terrified and left empowered, in the children who learned that violence was not normal, in the statistics that showed lives saved and cycles broken. But she was also exhausted, running on fumes and determination and an endless supply of coffee. You need to slow down, Savannah said one evening. They were sitting on the porch of Margot's little house, watching Grace chase fireflies in the yard. I cannot. There is too much to do. There will always be too much to do. The foundation will not collapse if you take a weekend off. But what if someone needs, then the very capable staff you have hired will handle it. Savannah took her sister's hand. You are not responsible for saving every woman in the world, Margot. You are responsible for being present for that little girl. Grace shrieked with delight as a firefly landed on her palm. 2 years old now, walking and talking and expressing opinions about everything from breakfast, foods, to bedtime stories. She is growing so fast, Margot said. I feel like I am missing it. You are not missing it. You are here. That is what matters. Margot watched her daughter. The daughter who had survived against all odds, who had been born fighting and had not stopped since. Grace released the firefly, watched it rise into the darkening sky, then turned to her mother with a smile that held all the joy and innocence that Margot had lost and found again. Mama, did you see? It flew. I saw, baby girl. It was beautiful. Grace ran across the yard and threw herself into Margot's arms. Sticky fingers and grass-stained knees and the smell of summer evening. I love you, Mama. I love you too, sweetheart. More than you will ever know. Savannah was right. The foundation was important. The work was meaningful. But this, right here, was everything. Margot made changes after that conversation. Hired more staff, delegated more responsibility, carved out time that was just for her and Grace, protected from the demands of running a national organization. They took vacations, just the two of them, or with Ted and Savannah joining. Beach trips where Grace learned to build sandcastles. Mountain cabins where they watched deer through the window. Simple adventures that created memories to replace the ones Margot wished she could forget. Grace started preschool, made friends, developed passionate interests in dinosaurs and princess dresses and why the sky was blue. Asked questions that Margot could not always answer but loved being asked. She was happy. Genuinely, uncomplicated, happy. The shadow of her father's crimes had not touched her. She knew nothing of the garage or the trial or the man who had tried to destroy her mother. Someday Margot would have to tell her, would have to explain why she had no contact with her biological father. Why there were certain questions that made her mother's face go sad, but not yet, not while Grace could still catch fireflies and believe the world was mostly good. On the 3rd anniversary of the Foundation's launch, they held a gala. The Houston ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne. Donors in formal wear mingled with survivors in their Sunday best. A string quartet played softly while servers circulated with trays of impossibly delicate appetizers. Margot wore a deep blue gown that had been her mother's. Simple, elegant, a reminder of the woman who had escaped her own abusive marriage and built a life worth living. Ted appeared at her elbow with 2 glasses of sparkling water. "No champagne?" she asked. "One of us needs to stay sharp." He handed her a glass. "The Hendricks Foundation just confirmed a $3 million donation, and the governor wants to meet you before dinner." "Of course he does," Margot sighed. "Can I have 5 minutes to just breathe?" "You can have 4. The silent auction closes in 20 minutes and you need to make a speech first." She found a quiet corner near the balcony doors, looked out at the Houston skyline. Remembered standing in a similar spot 4 years ago at a different gala in a different city. The night she met Preston, how different everything was now, how much better. "Mrs. Ashford?" She turned. A young woman stood behind her. Mid-20s, dark hair, eyes that held shadows Margot recognized immediately. "I'm sorry to bother you," the woman said. "I just wanted to say thank you. Your foundation, the safe house in Dallas, you saved my life." "What is your name?" "Rebecca. Rebecca Morrison." "Tell me your story, Rebecca." They talked for 20 minutes, through the speech Margot was supposed to give, through the silent auction closing, through her father's increasingly frantic texts. Rebecca had married young, had believed the promises, had spent 6 years slowly disappearing into a marriage that consumed everything she was, until she found the hotline number, until she made the call, until she escaped with her 2 children and began rebuilding. "I am starting nursing school next month," Rebecca said. "I want to help people the way your foundation helped me." "That is wonderful. I named my daughter Grace after yours. I hope that is okay." Margot's eyes filled with tears. "It is more than okay. It is an honor." She hugged Rebecca, this stranger who had become family through shared experience, this survivor who was becoming a thriver. "Keep going," Margot said. "Keep building. Keep proving that survival is just the beginning." "I will. I promise." Rebecca disappeared back into the crowd. Margot wiped her eyes, took a breath, prepared to face the governor and the donors and the endless demands of the evening. But she carried something with her now, a reminder of why all of this mattered, of the lives being changed, the cycles being broken, the hope being restored. This was her purpose, not revenge, not recovery, but transformation. Taking the worst thing that ever happened to her and turning it into something that could help others. Her mother would have been proud. Hell, she was proud. The speech went well. The donations exceeded projections. The governor pledged state support for expanded services. By the time the gala ended, the foundation had raised enough to open 3 new safe houses. Margot kicked off her heels in the car on the way home. Her feet ached, her face hurt from smiling. Her voice was hoarse from talking, but her heart was full. "You did good tonight," Ted said from the driver's seat. We did good, all of us. Your mother would have loved seeing you up there, commanding that room, making powerful people listen. I learned from watching you, both of you. They drove in comfortable silence through the quiet streets. The house was dark when they arrived. The babysitter had texted that Grace was asleep and had been an angel all evening. Margot crept into her daughter's room, stood beside the bed watching the small form breathe. The nightlight cast soft shadows across walls covered in dinosaur posters and princess drawings. Grace stirred, opened her eyes. "Mama, I'm here, baby girl. Go back to sleep. Did you have fun at your party?" "I did, but I am glad to be home with you." Grace smiled, reached up for a hug. Margot bent down and held her daughter close. "I love you, Mama. You are the best mama in the whole world." "I love you too, sweetheart. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Grace was asleep again in seconds. The untroubled sleep of a child who felt safe and loved and protected. Margot stayed a few minutes longer, just watching, just being grateful. Then she went to her own room, changed into comfortable clothes, sat by the window looking out at the Texas night. The stars were bright tonight, the same stars she had wished on as a little girl. The same stars she had looked at through the frosted windows of that garage, wondering if she would survive until morning. She had survived. More than that, she had thrived. The garage seemed like a lifetime ago now. The cold, the fear, the man who had tried to break her. They were part of her story, but they did not define it. She was Margot Ashford, mother to Grace, daughter of Ted and Margaret, founder of an organization that had helped thousands of women escape their own prisons. She was exactly who she had always been meant to be. The phone on her nightstand buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Her stomach clenched. Even now, even after everything, unknown numbers made her nervous. She looked at the screen. 10 years down, 6 to go. I think about you every day. Preston, somehow still able to reach out from behind bars. Margot stared at the message, let herself feel the fear that rose automatically. The anger that followed. Then she did something that would have been impossible 3 years ago. She blocked the number, deleted the message, put the phone away, and felt nothing but peace. Preston Blackwell was a ghost from another life. He had no power over her anymore. His threats were empty. His obsession was his own prison. She was free, truly, completely free. Margot lay down in her bed, closed her eyes, let sleep come slowly and naturally, without the nightmares that had plagued her for so long. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to make a difference. But tonight she was just a mother who loved her daughter, a woman who had survived the unsurvivable, a human being who had found her way back to hope. And that was enough. That was everything. The Texas night wrapped around the little house like a blessing. Crickets sang their ancient songs. The oak tree rustled in a warm breeze that carried the smell of summer flowers. And Margot Ashford, who had nearly frozen to death on a garage floor, but had instead risen to build an empire of compassion, finally slept in perfect peace, knowing that the best revenge was not destruction. It was joy. It was love. It was living well. And she was living very, very well indeed. Margot's story reminds us that survival is just the beginning, that the coldest nights can lead to the brightest dawns, and that sometimes the people who try to break us end up making us stronger. If this story touched your heart, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Was it the garage, the thermal camera discovery, or watching Margot finally find her freedom? If you enjoyed this journey, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to hear that escape is possible. And if you want more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. New stories drop every week. Thank you for staying until the end. Your support means the world. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than you know.